There is a supernatural world, and sometimes it manifests to people like you and me. You'll hear stories about this and so much more right here on Supernatural Confrontations. We're going back to Steve. We interviewed him about a UFO experience that he had with the Boy Scouts, and you can go back and look at that. It's under Supernatural Confrontation. Steve, maybe our editor John Adam can find that and post a link in the text box right below this. But before we get into that and so much more, a word from our sponsor. Hey folks, how about this? Noble Gold, one of the sponsors of our show, has just been picked by Consumer Affairs, the rating agency, as the overall #1 gold IRA company in the United States. How about them apples? Talk to the team today if you're thinking about precious metals. And if you're quick, they're giving away an incredible 1/10 of an ounce American Eagle gold-proof coin with every qualifying IRA or 401k rollover. Folks, you can't go wrong with Noble Gold. Call the team now, 877-646-5347. That's 876-646-5347. Or to find out more, please visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Once again, noblegoldinvestments.com. So sometimes when I'm interviewing people, they'll say, LA, something really strange happened. Can I tell you about it? I go, sure. And then one thing leads to another, and guess what? We wind up doing a Zoom chat. So here's Steve with an encounter that he had. I think you'll find it extremely interesting, and I'll weigh in on this after the interview. Folks, I'm back again with Steve. You may remember him a while back. We did an interview with Steve and UFO sighting, very close up and personal, and then something really strange happened, and that, of course, we call UFO brain fog. But about 10 years after this incident, Steve was at a hotel, and an incident, a supernatural confrontation happened then. Steve, tell us what happened, please.
Yeah, well, I was working in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I had finished work for the day and was in my hotel and had the TV on in the background and was reading, and I got tired and flipped off the TV and put down my reading and turned over toward the wall in my bed. And as soon as I turned toward the wall, I felt the presence of something in my room. And before I could react to it, it was on me and it seemed to be on me and pinning me to the bed, and I couldn't move. And I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything. And I was finally able to speak the name of Jesus. Barely able to get it out at all. And as soon as I did, this entity left the room. And I'd never had any encounter with anything like this previously, and I've never had anything like that since.
Now, this hotel where you were at, excuse me, this hotel where you were at, we know from past experience, I know from past experience, that you don't know who's in the room, you don't know what they were doing, watching, bringing into the room, no idea. So that's why when we come into a room like that, I always take authority over it, pray over the room, command anything foul and unclean. But what you had, to me, sounds like classic sleep paralysis. There was a shot, and I've experienced it, and it's my story mirrors yours, except I'm not in a hotel room, but it's to the T. In fact, a shameless plug here, Vicki Joy Anderson has a new book coming out, which we're talking about. They only come out at night, and we're publishing that book, and it's on sleep paralysis. She's got stories just like yours in the book, and once we have the book, we'll bring Vicki on. We'll be talking about it on an ongoing basis. But your experience, in my opinion, classic sleep paralysis. It mirrors my own to a T. And the moment I was able to get the name Jesus, which was like Jesus, like that, a choked whisper
Yeah,
boom, broke the whole thing. Because greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world.
absolutely.
I'll give you the last word. Go ahead.
Well, I want to had a question for you, LA. What do you attribute that to? Is that a demon or what is that?
Yeah, I would say it's a territorial demon, something that's been allowed into that area of a certain. It could be not a principality, but a territorial demon that's in that area because of something that's happened, and it's never been kicked out, as it were. So it's looking for something to inhabit, something to hassle, whatever. You don't know what happened in that hotel room. I mean, somebody could have been murdered there. Blood spilled, which is anywhere, acts as a gateway for the demonic. So it's not, in my opinion, it's not a fallen angel. It's more demonic than anything else. But
Fascinating.
the bottom line is, for those of us who believe, we have the authority not in ourselves, but in him. And when we pronounce his name, greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world.
Well, absolutely. I just wonder how someone who didn't have Christ would fare with something like that.
A couple of things could happen. They could become possessed. They could succumb to like a heart attack. They could just be, it can escalate into a sexual thing where they're raped, literally. Whether it's a male or female doesn't make any difference. Where they're raped, it can really ratchet up into some crazy things.
You know, LA, I said that I never had anything like that previously or afterward, but I have to recant that a bit. I've had times. I hurt my back about a year and a half ago,
Okay.
And because of the discomfort of sleeping, I decided to sleep in our guest room in our house, and my wife wasn't in there, and I would set up and read and just study and do some things in the evenings, and I can remember a couple of times during that time, I just had. It wasn't the same experience that I just recounted to you. It was just a very real and heavy fear came upon me for no reason. There was no logical reason to be fearful. There was nothing going on in the house that I should have been fearful about, or in the neighborhood or anything. I just this overwhelming feeling of fear came over me, and I don't know how to explain that.
You know, it's hard to say. The enemy, and this is scriptural, roams like a roaring lion seeking to devour. So it could have just been your, they drew your name for that night. I mean, it might sound silly, but they come to rob, kill, and destroy. And maybe you were getting too close to something. Maybe you were getting too close to God. Maybe the enemy didn't like that and he sent a spy in. I mean, it could be just a myriad of deals. You could be about to enter into something, and the enemy is pressing in. On the other hand, it could have been sent. That's the other side of the coin, where a group of people who are warlocks and witches, and those who are in the occult are targeting you for whatever reason, and they are sending entities to you. In other words, you could be in a Bible study talking against the occult or whatever. They're sending you these demonic entities to try to mess with you. So yeah.
Well, I did some praying that night, I'll tell you that.
You did. You did. Give me the last word.
Well, that's it. I just appreciate you talking with me and sharing your insights on this stuff, LA. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being bold and courageous to come on the record. So two things. First of all, and you heard me talk about the idea that when we walk into a hotel room, we don't know what's been going on there. Porn is extremely accessible today. I mean, you could just, in the 50s, you had to go down, and it was the Playboy magazine was covered up, and you couldn't really look at it and all that kind of stuff. All that's changed. Now it's on the internet. It's like click and you're there, which is why the internet can be a really dangerous place. I get that. I have to watch what comes over. I mean, constantly. Stuff, we are bombarded with stuff that I consider soft porn. So, you look the other way, watch the eye gate. But when you walk into a hotel room, the point I'm trying to make is you don't know who's been there. You don't know what's transpired in that room. Take authority over it. In the name of Jesus, cleanse the place. Take a spiritual fire hose and wash that place clean. The other thing is, and this is, if you have not read Vicky's book, Vicky Joy Anderson's book on sleep paralysis, it's a must read. It's flying off the shelves here. And Steve had an experience, very, in my opinion, classic sleep paralysis. He's laying in the bed, he can't move. Finally, he can cough out the name Jesus, and it breaks it. You want to check that out, go to lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net. The second one I'm going to show you here, back to back, sort of a little bonus, is the whole UFO encounter that Steve had. In fact, that was a very early show. I think John Adam can find it, and if he does, he'll put the link right in the text box below. But again, in interviewing Steve, I kind of held his feet to the fire. What I mean by that, why didn't you talk about this, with the other boys, with the boys that you were driving? Why is it that you didn't relate the story to anyone? And I'm not going to, spoil the thing here. So I'll let you watch the interview. Look at his body language when I call him accountable, when I say, hey, why didn't you do this? And he gets very serious. You'll hear me call that out. Anyway, folks, here's the interview. So Steve, as oftentimes this happens when we're done a recording, all of a sudden, a light bulb goes off and
Sure.
we start talking off camera, which is what happened here. And I asked you point blank, why didn't you talk about it? I mean, did you ever talk about it with the boys? I mean, it was like, I call this UFO brain fog. It's almost like, for some reason, that event is like switched off and you're not gonna go there. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, it's really weird because intellectually speaking, I knew it was it was very fascinating and it deserved some attention, and I really should have contacted some authorities and I could have taken them right to the spot where the thing landed, and whatever was there. I sort of have I'm speculating here, LA, that one of the crafts had mechanical difficulties.
I would concur with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they landed, and the whoever the occupants got into the other craft and they left, and then they probably came back and rescued the downed craft at another time. But I could have taken somebody right to it, but I'm just never. It's so hard to describe. Even though I knew that it was a huge thing, I never took it anywhere. I never really, it never really became a big issue for me. I mean, I've talked about people with it. I talked about it to people casually, but I've never really had any. It's just a weird. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just so weird.
Can you categorize that as normal behavior for you?
No,
So
not at all. Not at all.
Now I'm gonna lead the witness here. Okay, there's 3 craft. All right, how many craft once they land? How many craft come back up?
1.
So that leaves 2 on the ground.
No, there were 2 crafts coming in.
Okay.
And one craft.
So they left the craft there.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Is it? And this is a very remote area.
Yes.
Okay. And it's at least a mile off the road, so it's hidden.
Right.
No one's going to find this thing unless they're looking for it.
Right.
Is it possible that the reason why you never said anything about it, because they put that thought into your consciousness, into your head, along with the boys, kind of like Star Wars. These are not the droids you're looking for. And so you don't say anything about it to anybody, because if you had said something, maybe the authorities would have gone out and found a downed craft. But they prevented you from doing that. And, I can see it in your countenance even right now with your face. You're kind of serious and you're pondering and kind of, the wheels are running. I can see that.
Yeah.
Being a student of body language. So is that sort of a fair assessment?
Absolutely. It's the only way I can to explain it really, because from every logical standpoint, I should have reacted to it differently.
Especially as an engineer.
Yeah.
As an
Yeah.
engineer, you'd go, wait a minute, I'm driving over to that thing. I want to see what this thing is.
Right.
Especially as an engineer.
Yeah.
Your interest could be peaked to the nines.
Absolutely. I
But you didn't do that.
did not. No.
I have a term for it. I call it UFO brain fog.
I've heard you use that before. And
They can put thoughts in your head. They can manipulate you. That's what they do. All right. Once again, thanks so much for coming on the record. And I'm glad we did a follow-up, because in some ways, the second part of this interview was really juicy. What I mean by that, we got into something here. That, that's not normal. So thanks again, Steve. God bless you.
Sure. Thank you, LA.
So, what is UFO brain fog? These are not the droids you're looking for. I've heard this over and over and over again. People are shut down. They have screen memories. They have brain fog. They do things that normally they would never think about doing. And so it is with Steve. In my opinion, he was shut down. The other boys were shut down. During the interview, he even states, I don't know why we didn't talk about this. It's been years. And now he brings it forward. Folks, if you have a supernatural confrontation, please shoot us an email, supernatural@lamarzulli.net. Supernatural@lamarzulli.net. I will be at the Yuba City Conference coming up in September. That's the next one. And I think there's one more last conference in Louisville, Kentucky, and that'll be in October, and then that's it for the year. Please tell a friend about the show, Supernatural Confrontations. You can also, of course, watch us basically 5 days a week. My schedule's been a little wonky because of our travels and our filming and everything else, but we're back in the saddle, and I think next week will be somewhat normal. Let's hope so. Anyway, folks, thanks so much for watching Supernatural Confrontations. Remember, there is a supernatural world, and sometimes it manifests to people like you and me.